We live?
Nah, it's still loading. Mm-hmm. Peace, peace, peace.
What up? What up?
It's your boy Eric the Man Sanchez, True Knowledge. You know, you can catch me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Bing. You know, I'm everywhere. You know, just type in Eric the Man Sanchez, even on YouTube. I got a brother.
Astonishing testimony from retired military pilots.
We were primarily seeing dark gray or black cubes inside of a clear sphere.
Craft defying physics.
We have nothing that can stop the emitter and go the other direction.
Chilling words from a whistleblower.
Have you had incidences that have caused you to be in fear for your life for addressing these issues?
Yes, personally.
David Grush is a former intelligence officer who says the government has something to hide, perhaps even a spacecraft.
Do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
Biologics came with some of these recoveries.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biological?
Non-human.
Lawmakers say the Pentagon is not being upfront.
We can't trust a government that does not trust its people. We're going to uncover the cover-up.
Grush testified that some military personnel faced hostile encounters with unidentified aerial phenomena, but could not get specific.
I know of multiple colleagues of mine that got physically injured. And the activity
by UAPs or by people within the federal government?
Both.
Eric Burleson is a skeptic. He asked how an advanced race could get to Earth, but not be able to survive a crash.
I find a little bit far-fetched.
Lawmakers demand transparency.
If there's nothing to conceal, let Congress go to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, the Dugway Proving Ground, or even Groom Lake in Nevada.
The Pentagon has documented UFO reports since last year. The head of military intelligence, Ronald Moultrie, says there's no evidence anything is of alien origin. On Capitol Hill, Chad Pergram, Fox News.
Chad. Now's the time to prepare for your future with ECPI University Online. Accelerated programs in cybersecurity.
Chad, thanks so much. Let's talk about this even further, like I said, with one of those members of Congress who are instrumental in even having this hearing today, and that is the Republican from Tennessee, Tim Burchett. He joins me now. Congressman Burchett, thanks so much for being with us. My first question to you, though, is did you get the answers you were seeking today from holding this hearing?
Yeah, I really did. I guess I'm not an attorney, and I wouldn't ever try to be one. I've heard good attorneys say, don't ask questions unless you already know the answer. And I've been kind of in tune with this issue for many years. And so I was grateful to the members for the great questions they asked and that it was a bipartisan effort. But I was also very much aware that, the Pentagon and our military have been covering this issue up for years. And it was very evident to me when I proposed an amendment to the to the the TSA reauthorization bill. It basically just said that if a airline pilot were to spot an anomaly or a UFO or something, and they make a report to the government, that they would have to do that to Congress, and it was blocked. And I was told, I mean, it wasn't even allowed a vote, and I was told it was by the intelligence community. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not too sure about when a government bureaucrat tells your elected officials, in this case your Congress, what they can and what they cannot have. And so it's and you know, they've continuously done this. We went to Eglin Air Force Base, myself, Representative Luna, Representative Gates. We're told we were going to be able to interview pilots. We're going to see pictures, going to see film of these craft. And basically we were briefed on some stuff that was pretty incredible, but it had nothing to do with that issue. And then if it hadn't been for Representative Gates and his legal mind, we were escorted out back to the general's quarters. I remember they brought us or his office or whatever, and brought us a nice fruit tray. And then we went on, and he made some calls to the Pentagon, and they brought these pilots in. We were allowed to talk to one basically, and we saw some things that were not of this world, but we were basically denied this. And it's just a continuation throughout this whole process. You know, we've been bucked by staff, we've been bucked by Congress. We were, you know, even when we had our press conference, if it hadn't been for one of your colleagues on your very station here that informed me that they were sticking us basically in a little bitty room, or it was under construction for the press conference, which to me was just outrageous.
Sure.
And you know, just the whole thing has just been, and it's clear we are over the target. There's some people, they're squealing, and they know we got the goods.
Yeah.
And these were 3 impeccable witnesses.
Yeah.
They're with the credentials that we needed. They're decorated veterans. These are all great American patriots. You know, that doesn't mean a whole lot up in Washington, D.C., but I'll tell you, it means a whole heck of a lot back in Tennessee and in Florida, where Representative Luna and Representative Gates.
Wow, that was something. That was amazing. The volume had went down a little bit towards the end, but people, what we're trying to get you all to see here, we shouldn't even have to get you to see it, because this is live action that's going on right now. What we're informing you is that Congress and the government are at odds with each other over UFO disclosures, people. Yes, the government has finally came out and said that UFOs are real. Think of the many people that we laughed at over the years, and think of the infatuation that humans have had with UFO movies, and the fear and the respect, you know, and even the love affair, the affinity that we have had with UFO movies over the years, from Star Trek, you know, and even the love affair, the affinity that we have had with UFO movies over the years, from Star Trek, you know, and even the love affair, V, you know, Visitors, Orson Welles.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. It's an echo going on, and it's real bad reception.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Bad reception.
Okay. I'm gonna jump out and come back in.
Yeah, everything is going real slow. Yeah, so you think of the Elijah Muhammad's, you know, and when he talked about the mother plane, you know, then your Zachariah Kitchens and your Malachi Yorks. Were these people crazy? You know, did these people lose their minds? You know, these men came telling us these things long time ago. You know, I was in a conversation with Eric earlier. He was telling me, you know, how Malachi York used to talk about Planet X, and everybody thought that man was crazy. You know, and now NASA have found Planet X. You know, and all of the Nibiru. What was Nibiru and Planet X? That was pretty much the same thing, wasn't it, Eric?
Yeah, they're trying to say they claiming that it's a new planet that he was talking about.
Yeah.
I'm just for that person who put up this laughing sign. You look laughing emoji when you just seen the Congress having meetings on how they've been covering up UFOs, how they had veterans, flyer veterans, how they had congressmen, ex-special agents saying this. And y'all still think it's a joke.
Think about what he was saying about the fighter jet man. You know, I saw the whole thing. And he was talking about for years how he's been all up in the skies, and he's been dealing with these things for years, and they've been making him shut up, make him not say anything about it. He became a whistleblower.
And that's why we be, and that's why we be so. And you see the person, I'm just saying, you see the person in the back with somebody doing. I'm just saying that's another story though. But I'm just saying they watching. I'm telling you, they watching these people, man. These people are whistleblowers, and what happens is people always think these people are a joke, and all these people are lying, and then they end up dead. Then the whole info leaves with them because y'all people are so ignorant that y'all think everything is just fake and not real. But y'all sit around and turn around believing a man walking on water. Y'all believe in a person with wings flying around in the sky. When they tell you about real events that they seen in the sky, them being pilots. Why would these military men have to lie? Why would they why would they risk their life trying to tell you something, and then you turn around and laugh in their face?
Because they easily
so
shut up. They can easily shut up, keep going up in that sky, keep flying, keep getting scared every weekend just to get a check and just shut up.
Yeah.
Because if he quit, then his family gonna think he crazy. You know what I'm saying? You know. What we're asking you all to do is pay attention to what is going on in Congress. These are governmental meetings. These are former U.S. officials. Okay? And these are congressional meetings, hearings, UFO disclosures. They are saying, I didn't say that they was real. I'm not going to even say if they real or not. Y'all didn't believe me when I said we was Israelites, and I was proving the fact. So what I'm trying to do is get you to see what your government is saying that is real, people. This is your government telling you that UFOs are real. Yasha didn't say UFOs are real. I didn't say aliens was real. Your government said it. People that are more authoritative than I. The question is, let's talk. Let's talk about it. You know?
And see, what happened is y'all people are so religious, man. Y'all will believe an angel, a human being with wings flying around, but you can't believe that something is in a spaceship or something is flying around in the space when we got spaceships ourselves as humans. And I mean, it's just unbelievable that I could say, oh, it's a UFO. They said the UFO is real. Oh, ha ha ha. Oh yeah, but I seen an angel flying around the sky. Oh yeah, I believe you. It sounds ridiculous. It's just ridiculous, man. You see what I'm saying? Like how we think.
Yeah, many people believe on things that they never saw, but there's many people who have saw things and was taught to ignore what they saw.
Yeah.
If that's not crazy, people, it's crazy. Have I ever seen any unidentified flying objects in my lifetime? Well, I'm going to tell you a story. I think so. I think so because I was not able to identify it. We talking about the year had to have been around 2007. It was November 11th. Had to have been about 10:45 p.m. And I was looking into the constellations, the Big Dipper, and the Northern Star, which what appeared to be the Northern Star. The star, it was right there at the end. That star got to moving and traveling and moving all throughout from the arm to the coupling part of the Big Dipper. And it was moving and flying through this thing like an asteroid in the middle of the night. To me, it's a flying object, and I am not able to identify it. So it's a UFO. What do you say?
Yeah, I'm gonna say around the pandemic time, I've seen 1,000 flying objects to the sky. I mean, thousands of them. Me and the girl, and we actually put it on Facebook. But when you look at the Facebook, it just looked like we're looking in the sky. But if you hear me and her talking, we're literally saying, man, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of lights in the sky, and they flying. And it won't know the U.S. It wasn't on the news. Nobody was talking about it. And we tried to put it on live so people couldn't say that we was crazy. And the way they had it, when we had the camera to the sky, we couldn't see nothing. You can't see nothing. It just looks black. And I'm like, how all them red lights was in the sky, but with the camera you couldn't see it and you couldn't see anything. You know what I'm saying? So yes, I have seen it. I've seen unhuman beings in my lifetime. So for people to act like, you know what I mean, that the government will sit here, waste their time in a meeting talking about something that you think is a joke, then you're the joke.
You know, I have someone sitting on the side of me right now, and she was telling me earlier that she's been knowing about this for some days now. Can you tell me your experience and what you think about the actual idea that the government is coming out disclosing this?
Yes, I can. My name is Deneen Lewis, and yes, I can. I just say, hey, with the unidentified UFOs, and I also speak on, hey, the unidentified UFOs. I've been drinking, okay, but I do understand all concepts. I'm sorry, Cuzzo.
What did you see about it? Did you see about it on the news? What did you think?
I seen it on the news. You understand?
What did you think? Did it?
I felt it was real. You understand?
Wow.
I felt it was real because it is real out here. You understand? We is just not the mankind of what the Most High put out here. It's others of us out here. It's others. We just haven't been united. I'm sorry, fam. Hey.
All right. Yeah. So I just wanted to just know what others, just the typical everyday person has to say. You know what I'm saying about this type of information, because to me, it's startling. I mean, whether I believe it, whether I like it. You know what I'm saying? I don't like the idea that something strange can be flying around in our galaxy that can be bigger, better, stronger than us. But it's not about me liking it. It's about realizing what's going on. And our government is saying that this stuff is real, people. Yeah. And it got the government up in shambles while we sitting around here talking about my pussy's pink and my asshole's brown. Right? I mean, really. You know, while we thinking about our next bag to shuffle, you know, we're not understanding. Really, all of that could be for nothing if what they're saying is really true. See, we have found ways to manipulate the government, right? We have found ways to live comfortably in a government that was totally built against us. Can you do that against finding out that you are under rule or even invasion of alien forces?
Exactly.
What are you to prepare for now? What are you to work for now? Are you going to keep living your life Like, so what? They've been here thousands of years. And we're going to just keep ignoring them? Are we going to ignore not just them, our government officials, our own elected government officials? Are we going to say that now this is the time where the government is conspiring? No, they're not. They're breaking up the conspiracy. A conspiracy is a hidden plan, a secret agenda. And the secret agenda is no longer a secret anymore.
I got a little bit of the lab you want me to play whenever you're ready.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead and run it, man. I'm going to fall back and we're going to run some clips for y'all, just so y'all can see what is going on. I don't want you to believe me. I just want y'all to listen and to see what's going on here. We'll make sense of it later.
Do you believe that officials at the highest levels of our national security apparatus have unlawfully withheld information from Congress and subverted our oversight authority?
There are certain elected leaders that had more information that I'm not sure what they've shared with certain Gang of Eight members or et cetera, but certainly I would not be surprised.
Okay. You've stated that the government is in possession of potentially non-human spacecraft. Based on your experience and extensive conversations with experts, do you believe our government has made contact with intelligent extraterrestrials?
Something I can't discuss in public setting.
Whoa.
Okay, I can't ask when you think this occurred. If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries. Yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
And was this documentary evidence, this video, photos, eyewitness? Like, how would that be determined?
The specific documentation I would have to talk to you in a skiff about.
Gotcha. Okay. So, and you may or may not be able to answer my last question, and maybe we get into a skiff at the next hearing that we have, but who in the government, either what agency, sub-agency, what contractors, who should be called into the next hearing about UAPs, either in a public setting or even in a private setting? And you probably can't name names, but what agencies or organizations, contractors, et cetera, do we need to call in to get these questions answered, whether it's about funding, what programs are happening, and what's out there?
I can give you a specific cooperative and hostile witness list of specific individuals that were in those.
And how soon can we get that list?
I'm happy to provide that to you after the hearing.
Super. Thank you. And I yield back.
Okay, now we have Mr. Langworthy's here. Okay.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank all of the witnesses for being here today to discuss this very unique topic. And I'd like to jump right into my questions, if you don't mind. Commander Fravor, can you briefly describe your background?
Yeah, I was an enlisted Marine, Naval Academy graduate, Navy, flew for 18 years, got a master's from University of Houston, and I've worked in the private sector for the last, 16 years, 17 years. I do a lot of defense work. So
Really gold-plated credentials. Commander Fravor, we have all seen the floating Tic Tac video that you engaged with on November 14th, 2004. Can you briefly talk about why you were off the coast of San Diego that day?
yeah, we were at a workup with all the battle groups. So we integrate the ships with the carrier, the air wing with the carrier, and we start working. So we were doing an air-to-air defense to hone not only our skills, but those of the USS Princeton when they had been tracking them for 2 weeks. The problem was that there was never manned aircraft airborne when they were tracking them. And this was the first day. And unfortunately, we were the ones airborne and went and saw it.
Do you remember the weather that day? Was it cloudy or windy or anything out of the ordinary on the Pacific coast?
It was actually, if you're familiar with San Diego, it was a perfect day, light winds, no white caps, clear skies, not a cloud. It was, for flying, it was the best.
Now, is it true that you saw, in your words, a 40-foot flying Tic Tac shaped object?
That's correct. Or for some people that can't know what a Tic Tac is, it's a giant flying propane tank.
Fair enough. Did this object come up on radar or interfere with your radar or the USS Princeton?
The Princeton tracked it, the Nimitz tracked it, the E-2 tracked it. We never saw it on our radars. Our fire control radars never picked it up. The other airplane that took the video did get it on a radar. As soon as it tried to lock it, it jammed the radar, spit the lock, and he rapidly switched over to the targeting pod, which you can do in the F-18.
From what you saw that day and what you've seen on video, did you see any source of propulsion from the flying object, including on any potential thermal scans from your aircraft?
No, there's none. There's no IR plume coming out. And Chad, who took the video, went through all the EO, which is black and white TV, and the IR modes, and there's no visible signs of propulsion. It's just sitting in space at 20,000 feet.
In your career, have you ever seen a propulsion system that creates no thermal exhaust?
No.
Can you describe how the aircraft maneuvered?
Abruptly, very determinate. It knew exactly what it was doing. It was aware of our presence, and it had acceleration rates. I mean, it went from 0 to matching our speed in no time at all.
Now, if the fastest plane on Earth was trying to do these maneuvers that you saw, would it be capable of doing that?
No, not even close.
And just to confirm, this object had no wings, correct?
No wings.
Now, was the aircraft that you were flying, was it armed?
No, never felt threatened at all.
If the aircraft was armed, do you believe that your aircraft or any aircraft in possession of the United States could have shot the Tic Tac down?
I'd say no. Just on the performance, it would just left.
Wow.
In a split second.
It looks like
wow.
that we have a problem here that needs further investigation.
Yes.
Yes.
In your belief, is this flying Tic Tac, I mean, is it capable of being the product of any other nation on the earth?
No, I said, like I said earlier, I think it defies current material science and the ability to develop that much propulsion. And I know there's been some physicists of them calculations, which is beyond anything that we have.
Defies
Well,
material
either the United
science.
States has an adversary here in this world that we don't know, or we really have some serious investigations to do. I really appreciate you being here. Is there anything else about the November 14th, 2004 incident that you think is important for this committee to know that you haven't been asked here today?
No, it's been said it's probably the most credible UFO sighting in history based on all the sensors that were tracking it. And then for us to get visual and to go against the naysayers that it's something on the screen or whatever. I mean, there's 4 sets of human eyeballs. We're all very credible. Of the 6 of us that were involved in the thing, including the video, every one of us is going to do 20 plus years in the military in very responsible
Wow.
positions. So I'd say the world needs to know that. It's not a joke.
No, thank you very much for your testimony here today for all of you, and I yield back, Mr.
These are
Chairman.
military officials,
Travis.
people.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for being here and the courage it took to come forward and again, the sacrifice that each of you have made. I serve on the National Security Subcommittee for the Financial Services Committee, so I really want to stay in the national security lane, if I may. So when we think about traditional adversaries and both us towards them and them towards us, we probe their capabilities. We look for weaknesses, and we collect that data, that reconnaissance for in the event we need it in the future. For each of you, yes or no question, based off of your own experience or the data that you've been privy to, is there any indication that these UAPs could be essentially collecting reconnaissance information? Mr. Graves?
Yes.
Mr. Grush?
Fair assessment, yeah.
Mr. Fravor?
Very possible.
Again, in the national security vein, is it possible that these UAPs would be probing our capabilities? Yes or no, Mr. Graves?
Yes.
Rush?
Yes,
Fravor?
Definitely.
Is it possible that these UAPs are testing for vulnerabilities in our current systems?
Yes.
yes.
Possible.
Do you feel, based off of your experience and the information that you've been privy to, that these UAPs provide an existential threat to the national security of the United States? Mr. Graves?
Potentially.
Yes, sir, potentially.
Same answer, potentially.
Yeah, I'd say
Fravor?
definitely, potentially.
Mr. Graves and Fravor, in the event that your encounters had become hostile, would you have had the capability to defend yourself, your crew, your aircraft?
Absolutely not.
Sir?
No.
Is based
Nothing
off
we
of
could
the
do.
information that you've been privy to, is there any indication that these UAPs are interested in our nuclear technology and capabilities?
Yes.
By external observation, sure, that could be a fair assessment, yeah.
Yes.
Is there any indication that the Department of Energy is involved in UAP data collection and housing?
I don't have an answer.
I can't confirm or deny that in a public setting.
And could you do it in a secure setting?
Yes.
Mr. Favor.
No, I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, I think I'm the last member to go, but there clearly is a threat to the national security of the United States of America. As members of Congress, we have a responsibility to maintain oversight and be aware of these activities so that, if appropriate, we take action. I would encourage the chairman to demand that we have any and all, but in particular, Mr. Grush, talk to us in a skiff. And if that access is denied, I will personally volunteer to initiate the Holman Rule against any personnel or any program or any agency that denies access to Congress. Mr. Chairman, with that, I will yield the remainder of my time to my fellow colleague from Tennessee, Mr. Burchett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Ogles, for the great questions, brother. Mr. Grush, I might have asked this before, but I want to make sure. Do you have any personal knowledge of someone who's possibly been injured working on legacy UAP reverse engineering?
Yes.
Okay. How were they injured? Is it something like a radioactive type situation or something we didn't understand? I've heard people talk about Havana syndrome type incidences. What was your recollection of that?
I can't get into specifics, but you could imagine assessing an unknown unknown. There's a lot of potentialities you can't fully prepare for.
How do you think we ought to handle UAP whistleblower complaints like yours in the future?
Yeah, there was some issue with mine. So, PPD 19 process, it goes to the Intel committees, either through PPD 19 or ICD 120. There's not a good way for the Intelligence Community Inspector General to provide that to other committees. And I asked my information to be sent to the House and Senate Armed Services Committee because there are Title 10 equities at play, but there was no smooth process to do so. Yeah.
That's a trash can.
Wow. Amazing. So we're listening to our military air people that's up in the air in the air forces talk about their encounters with these alien UFO I think they call them ATP, what they call them, UAPs. They're changing it now from UFO to UAPs. And I think that's a tactic too to kind of soften, the blow of the disclosure. They're in the Air Forces.
I just let y'all know they're trying to keep kicking us out there, so we ain't leaving. They're trying to put us out there so we won't share this, but we will keep sharing for y'all.
I've been thrown out of here about 4 times already.
Yeah, they're trying to throw us out there so they can't hear this talking. Because a lot of our people don't go to these meetings. They don't understand these meetings. Just like the city.
Look at all the white folks in there. Just all Europeans, Mason symbols, everywhere.
Yeah. And I'm about to try to get up this lab again. They just kicked both of us out. They kicked the video off and everything. It's crazy.
So we got started all over again, huh?
No, it's still playing. I got it still playing. Because, on my job, I just got to share it. But they trying to stop me from sharing it right now. But we go get it for y'all, man. Trust me, we're getting it. But these people, these governments are going against each other. And they telling you, no, we getting tired of y'all not telling the public about this. We're gonna let the public know this is this. We're gonna talk to all the pilots, all the people that was in the military that seen it, all the people who went against it. You know what I'm saying? And it's not a game. And he's saying this is a threat against America. A threat.
Yeah, you heard the European man said this is not a joke.
Yeah, it's not a joke. Funny, this is not a game. Don't listen to these people that tell you this is not a good. This ain't no joke. Government ain't gonna waste their time on a joke. Trust me, not on nothing like this. They can easily just let y'all keep believing in these crazy movies or like Tyrone and stuff like that. They're not gonna spend their time, talking about stuff like that. It's loading up now, just waiting for it to pop up. There it go.
We're witnessing
Was there
history,
specific
y'all. This is
incidents when those,
amazing.
Yeah.
Message traffic.
I just hope all these people that be laughing, all these people
Some
think it's a
scholarship
joke when
on
that
that
actually
would open the
happens.
door to a further investigation.
In the future,
using those
I wonder what they gonna feel like. You gonna
Thank
feel like
you.
idiots for
And then
telling
my
you
last
people this
question
ain't
with
real.
51 seconds remaining. You mentioned white collar crime.
Yeah, so a lot of them so worried about Jesus flying up the sky
taking place in
and
regards
on a horse.
to
They
cover-up. Can you
not
please
worrying about the
elaborate?
real stuff.
I
that's
have
going on.
concerns based on the interviews I conducted
Can y'all
under my
hear it?
official duties
Yeah.
of potential violations of the federal acquisition regulations, the FAR.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I yield the remainder of my time.
Okay, we'll go to Mr. Raskin for 3 minutes.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And I thank the witnesses for their endurance and service today. Mr. Fravor, you've described your episode in detail now, and you call it the most credible UFO sighting in history.
Most credible.
Was this the
Wow.
first time that you encountered a UFO or a UAP in 2004?
Yes.
And what was your general attitude or perspective on the UFO discussion before that happened?
I never felt that we were alone with all the planets out there, but I wasn't a UFO person. I wasn't watching History Channel and MUFON and all
So
that.
this is a person who wasn't a UFO person who didn't believe in UFOs is telling
experiences or
you.
encounters since that happened?
No.
And so have you formed any general conclusions about what you think you experienced then?
Yes, I think what we experienced was, like I said, well beyond the material science and the capabilities that we had at the time, that we have currently, or that we're going to have in the next 10 to 20 years.
Ooh, did you hear
Very
that?
good. Mr. Grush.
I mean, these bees are so
you've been
advanced,
able to
man. They said they
answer in
20
great
years
detail on
advanced more than
certain
the
questions, and then
government.
other things you say you're not able to respond to. Can you just explain where you're drawing the line? And what's the basis for that?
Yeah, based on my DOPSR security review and what they've determined that is unclassified.
I see. So you're answering any questions that just call upon your knowledge of unclassified questions, but anything that relates to classified matters you're not commenting on in this context.
So you hear this? This is stuff they letting him talk about. They release.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is stuff they're letting him release, not the stuff that's
Mr. Graves, you
that's
said
sealed
that
in
there are
secret.
dozens of fellow pilots, military pilots. Are there also commercial pilots who've encountered the same kind of sightings that you described before?
They are similar. Commercial pilots have less range and less sensors to be able to reach out and look for objects over wide swaths of airspace. And so pilots are seeing them, commercial pilots are seeing them, and they're typically closer, and the range of what they're seeing is pretty large.
What is the most vivid, concrete sighting with the naked eye of the objects that you described before, the cube-like objects?
Certainly, I think the most vivid sighting of that would have been near midair that we had at the entrance to our working area. One of these objects was completely stationary at the exact entrance to our working areas, not only geographically, but also at altitude. So it was right where all the jets are going, essentially on the eastern seaboard. The two aircraft flew within about 50 feet of the object, and that was a very close visual sighting.
And you were in one of the aircraft?
I was not. I was there when the pilot landed. He canceled the mission after, and I was there. He was in the ready room with all his gear on, with his mouth open. And I asked him what the problem was, and he said he almost hit one of those darn things.
He said he was 50 feet away from it?
Yes, sir.
And his description of the object was consistent with the description you gave us before?
A dark gray or a black cube inside of a clear sphere.
Inside of a clear sphere?
Yes.
and with no self-evident propulsion system.
No wings, no IR energy coming off of the vehicle, nothing tethering it to the ground. And that was primarily what we were experiencing out there.
I'm over time. Thank you very much for your service, and I yield back to
We
Mr.
talking to people that know about
Very good,
engineering,
Mr.
that know
Burchett.
how these
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is for all three of y'all.
our own
Why
flat
don't you
just
come
work.
forward on this
So
issue?
they're
Yeah, but these
saying
are people
it's
who up
I
there.
came
phenomenal.
forward because
They
I
up there
felt that
with
my
them.
colleagues did not have a way
Yeah,
to
yeah, that's what I'm
mitigate
saying. But they
safety,
can look
and
at
I
it
wanted
and
to
tell
help
that
them.
it's not
I
a
was trained as an
human
aviation
made
safety officer
machine.
by the Navy, and this seemed, it just felt right. I felt like I had to help the folks that were still flying and dealing with this.
Mr. Grush.
Purely a sense of duty. My first sworn oath when I was a cadet 18 years ago, and I still uphold that even out of uniform.
Commander.
I was pestered by a friend, and I asked why, and he said, "You're the one person that they can't discredit, and you'll add credibility to the New York Times article." And so after about 6 times, I said, "Okay."
Yeah. This town isn't made, unfortunately, by people like y'all. We thank y'all. And I do want to also thank the people in the audience and the people that are watching this that can't be, people all over the world that have kept this issue alive. You've endured criticism and derogatory remarks, and we're trying to get to the bottom of it. So God bless y'all. Thank y'all so much. We really appreciate you guys and gals.
Exactly. These are people who can just be quiet, take all their
That's why we
credit,
need term
take
limits.
all their
Y'all keep
money, and sit
clapping
on
as
the side,
politicians
and
just
they're
keep
willing to
talking.
salute.
Let me ask y'all, how can the
Uh,
public contribute to UAP
I
reporting?
guess a
What
dignity to
avenues
these
do you think
people
are available to the public
and
to
respect
report
for these
these
people for
sightings?
putting this stuff out.
Well, right now, I don't think there is a lot of public options for every man to be able to report on this. I think even for professionals that have sensor data that are seeing these on a regular basis, they're still hesitant to come forward. And so for the general public, I think encouraging the conversations that we're having today, looking for technology solutions that can be distributed so that objective data can be gathered is the first place to go.
Mr. Grush?
I'll just touch on the whistleblower side of it. I do encourage, current and former military, intelligence community, and industry contractors to come forward in a legal way, either through the IC or DoD or whatever the cognizant IGs are, to lead, join me in this discussion.
Commander, and I guess I should say this for the record. My daddy was United States Marine Corps, 1st Marine Division. So,
Hoorah.
yes, sir. He was old school, him and Chesty Puller on Peleliu. So thank you,
wow.
brother.
Wow.
Yes, sir. I'm not anything like my daddy. He was incredible. I'm very mediocre to say the least, but go ahead.
You seem to be doing fine.
Yeah.
For me, I was an accident investigator, so the biggest thing that you learn, and I think that witnesses need to do is, one, don't try and make the fish bigger than it was. Stick to the facts, write it down, and don't speculate what you think it is because it will sway your decision. Just write the facts down. We can get all the facts together and we can start to investigate and get a real honest story instead of it was this big.
Thank you all.
That's
and I wanna
real
thank
right there.
everybody. We made history today. Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Thank you much, Mr. Garcia.
Thank you. I know now we're going to be making some closing remarks. And so I just wanted to say a few things. First, to our witnesses, I want to thank all of you for being here with us today. I know that it takes a lot of courage. You're telling really important information to this committee, and I just want to thank you also for all three of you, your service to our country. I also want to just note that today's hearing was both important but also serious, and I want to thank our subcommittee chairman, Mr. Grothman, I think for running a very fair and substantive hearing. I do want to thank the committee staff on both sides for the amount of work that it took to put this hearing in place, and certainly to all the members that have been involved in this issue prior to the hearing. I also want to note for our witnesses and for the public that I'm a freshman member of Congress and I've only been here for 7 months, but this is by far the most bipartisan conversation and discussion that I have seen happen in the Congress. And I think that a topic of this significance as it relates to our national security, as it relates to information that we're trying to gather for the American public, does bring people together, and I think that's been really great to see. I think it's also important to note for the public, today in our hearing, we had on our side also both our full ranking member, which is Mr. Raskin, and our vice ranking member, which is Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, both here at our hearing. I think it shows the importance and seriousness that our side of the aisle is taking to this important hearing, but also to the broader issue as it relates to working with our Republican counterparts on this committee. I want to additionally add that I think, and I think it's really important that we have and continue these discussions and these hearings. Clearly, there's a lot of information that we don't know, but it's also very clear that we have to continue our investigation and accountability on asking the right questions and ensuring that they're part of the public record. One thing that was important today is some folks might wonder, why are we asking questions that might already be out there or that have been asked before? It's important that they're asked and put into the public record as it relates to this committee. And so I want to thank you for, answering some questions multiple times. I know not just in maybe meetings you had with some members, but also here in the public. Let me also just add an additional note that it's important also that our friends in the media and those that are not just reporting on this hearing, but that have reported on this topic and that may in the future, the media has an important role in this process. And it's very important that the media engages, does independent investigation, and reports on not just what happened today, but what they see independently as what is happening around UAPs in the broader community. That is also an important public benefit that we have in trying to get the information and the facts as it relates to this. Let me also just say finally that as a teacher and an educator and a longtime teacher and researcher, that I also really believe in following facts, in doing your homework, and in making sure that you follow science as we try to get as most information as possible. And so I want to thank you all for agreeing to do that today. Transparency is a cornerstone of government. We live in a vast galaxy, a lot of unanswered questions, and thank you all for being here today. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I'd like to one more time thank Mr. Burchett and Ms. Luna for bringing this to our attention. It's a topic that has interested me since I was in school. It was a very illuminating hearing. Obviously, I think several of us are going to look forward to getting some answers in a more confidential setting. I assume some legislation will come out of this. Sure.
I apologize, Mr. Chairman. I need to compliment the folks in my office that did a lot of the work on this. Rachel and Noah sitting behind me here. They're very quiet and humble, but if without them, this thing would not have come off like it did. So I apologize.
Thank you. I think we're going to want to look into what we can do to make more of this information public. I think there's certainly a time period after which it should always be made public, and people have been concerned about these issues, like I said, since I was in high school. But in any event, I'd like to thank everybody who was here, sticking through the entire hearing. Without objection, the members will have 5 legislative days to submit materials and to submit additional written questions for the witnesses, which will be forwarded to the witnesses for their response. If there's no further business without objection, the subcommittee stands adjourned.
Fact, out there, I met a fellow who came in here all the way from Denmark to be here for this meeting. So this is huge. This is worldwide. I think we suspect what's going on, but I'd also like to thank the members of Congress who have supported our efforts to make this hearing happen. Some have even confided to me that they've had UFO sightings of their own. Those members, of course, some of them wish to remain anonymous, and I'll keep it that way. But also, finally, I'd like to thank these 3 brave witnesses here. They took an oath. They took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States, and dadgummit, they're doing it. And we owe them a debt of gratitude. Y'all quit clapping. You're cutting in on my time. Just kidding. These folks, they've got nothing to gain from this. And I think you're going to find out that they've endured quite a few slings and arrows. We need to remember them in our prayers and their families. And I'm thankful to them for their honest testimonies. They have done interviews and appeared in documentaries like Accidental Truth to get their stories out there. And now they are all here to testify under oath for Congress. It's been so difficult to get here today. I've said, in the Baptist church, we'd say that the devil's in our way. And the devil has been in our way through this thing. We've run into roadblocks from members, from the intelligence community, the Pentagon. I proposed legislation to go in the FAA reauthorization that just said if an airline pilot has a sighting, that when he makes that report to the FAA, that it would come to Congress. But I was told that the intelligence community did not like that, and the amendment was not even heard in committee. I think it's time for this country to take back our country. We need to tell the folks at the Pentagon they work for us. Dadgummit, we don't work for them. And that's exactly the point. This is an issue of government transparency. We can't trust a government that does not trust its people. We're not bringing little green men or flying saucers into the hearing. Sorry to disappoint about half y'all. We're just going to get to the facts. We're going to uncover the cover-up, and I hope this is just the beginning of many more hearings and more people coming forward about this. And I yield back the remainder of my time. I think, is it to Representative Luna, Mr. Chairman, or is that?
Yeah, we'll call Ms. Luna for her statement.
The circumstances surrounding UAPs has captivated the attention of the American people for decades, ingrained in even the minds of our nation's leaders from Jimmy Carter to Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton to Donald Trump, Marco Rubio to Chuck Schumer, John Radcliffe to National Security Council officials. Yet from Roswell, New Mexico to the coast of Jacksonville, Florida, the sightings of UAPs have rarely been explained by the people who have firsthand accounts of these situations. This is largely due to the lack of transparency by our own government and the failure of our elected leaders to make good on their promises to release explanations and footage and mountains of overclassified documents that continue to be hidden from the American people. This isn't just how I feel. In fact, the American people largely believe that the government has actively covered up the truth about UAPs. One poll in particular found that 68% of Americans believe that the government is hiding information about UAPs and not being honest about what we know about them. And from my personal experience, I believe the same thing. Another poll found that nearly half Americans believe that the federal government is doing a very bad or somewhat bad job of dealing with reports of UFO sightings. As Representative Burchett just referenced on the FAA bill that just went through, you can tell that that's exactly happening. Considering the thousands of testimonies and videos taken on people's phones and eyewitnesses' accounts made by credible witnesses such as doctors, pilots, scientists, and active duty service members, it is unacceptable to continue to gaslight Americans into thinking that this is not happening or that the potential of intelligent life forms exists other than humans. Even more alarming is the fact that these eyewitnesses are many of times service members and have no assurance that their lives will not be negatively impacted or even harmed by their experiences. In being an active duty service member working on an airfield, I've had conversations with many pilots where they were in fear of coming forward for retribution and or being taken off flight status. How do we know this? Because the government has said nothing to assure us otherwise. They have also did nothing to calm the concerns of over 20% of Americans who have reported to have seen UFOs or UAPs. We are simply told not to question the government and that the government has it under control. Today is the first hearing of its kind where we will attempt to get down to the bottom of what is actually happening with UAPs. But we will hear from people who have had personal sightings rather than Pentagon bureaucrats who have always been sent to stonewall our investigations. Just so that the press knows and the people know, we were even denied access to a classified briefing in a SCIF prior to this hearing due to the amount of hoops that we had to jump through to grant temporary clearance to witness Grush, who has knowledge of classified information. It is time to have an open-minded discussion on this topic, to hear the evidence and understand the magnitude of what this means, not just for our nation, but for humanity. Thank you, Chairman. I yield back the rest of my time.
Thank you very much, and I'd like to thank you and Mr. Burchett for bringing this topic to my attention. Now we'll recognize National Security Subcommittee Ranking Member Garcia for 10 minutes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank first our witnesses for joining us today. I want to begin by thanking you all for your service to our country and for sharing your voices today and your courage to be here as well. To Mr. Graves, particularly grateful to you to spend some time that we had for you to share with candor some of your experiences, so I appreciate that as well. I do want to thank all the members of our subcommittee today and also those that are here and have waved on for their incredible interest in this issue, particularly to Congressman Burchett. I know that your leadership has brought us to this place today, and I want to thank you for that, as well as everyone else that's been engaged in this work. I also want to thank the oversight staff, who I know has been working very hard to ensure that today's hearing is serious, that it's transparent, and that it also provides appropriate answers, as our oversight body always demands. Now, it's really important that we're here in a bipartisan way to have this conversation, which really to the heart of it is about national security and key to the subcommittee's core purpose. This is the subcommittee on national security of the Oversight Committee. Now, our witnesses will testify today that UAPs have posed a serious safety threat, and we must understand this. More broadly, we're dealing with real questions that get to the heart of our faith in government. Faith in our institutions, as we all know, is at an all-time low. Partisanship and alternative facts make it too easy to doubt narrative or our institutions. But this hearing will offer the public unique perspectives, building on years of reporting by both federal agencies and the independent media. Now, some of the earliest reporting on this issue was a groundbreaking 2017 New York Times report, which revealed research, as we know now, on unidentified anomalous phenomena, or as many call UFOs, by the Defense Intelligence Agency. Mr. Graves and Commander Fravor's experiences with UAPs have also been documented by the public, not just by the New York Times, but CNN and many other national news outlets. Now, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence has published public reports documenting UAPs, and on June 9th, 2022, NASA announced that the agency is commissioning a study to, of course, examine unidentified anomalous phenomena. Now, the sheer number of reports, whistleblowers, and stories of unidentified anomalous phenomena should raise real questions and warrant investigation and oversight, and that's why we are here today. Now, pilots have reported encounters for years. Now, because of the stigma around reporting these incidents, we still don't have a complete picture of actually what's going on, particularly as our witnesses will testify on the civilian side, and that is a real problem that we have today in the country. Now, it's very important that we show that Democrats and Republicans in Congress can come together in a bipartisan way to cut through misinformation and to look at the facts in a serious and thoughtful manner. If we are to advance oversight and public disclosure, we must also gain the broad support of the public. We will succeed getting facts out to the public faster if there is a broad public support as part of the process. Now, I understand fully the Department of Defense is hesitant to share information that could also undermine our national security by revealing information on the capabilities of our own aircraft, our sensors, and other sensitive material. At the same time, many people believe that we're withholding information from them, and that is dangerous also. I believe in
Yeah, they throwing us out again. They stopping the show. They don't want this type of information getting out there. You know, now we have to intellectualize this much later. We don't know what this is. We know that the government is disclosing UAPs, formerly known as UFOs. We're getting this information out. The government is getting it out, and we're just getting it out to the people. You know, like I was saying, you know, we have heard countless stories, and more recently, like within the last 20 years, you know, 30 years, we've seen and had more sightings, especially since the social media day, age, and time, you know. So what we're doing here is that we're not saying that UFOs are real, right? We didn't say that. We're not saying that aliens are real. We didn't say that. We're telling you what your government is doing right now. And they're having UFO disclosures. And that is whether I like it or not. That is whether you like it or not. The government is disclosing this information, and they're somehow stopping us from helping them disclose this information. Yeah, Eric showed you what happened. They knocked you out again, Eric. You back with us? Yeah, we have some more clippings. Some more. You can go on over and just look up UFO disclosures and see all of the information.
Let's stay tuned. It's coming up. Give me a second.
It's coming out. Yeah. Yeah, this is something, man. Don't you think so, Eric? This is, I mean,
Yeah.
wow. My life is great. I mean, what a great time to be alive. I mean, I've seen the black president of the United States. We're witnessing UFO disclosures. We found out that the Israelites were black. I mean, what the hell is going on, people?
I'm about to put it back up. So they got some more questions for the people, but y'all see what's going on. This is so real that they're trying to make it to where this is a national threat. They're telling the FBI, they're telling all these people, y'all going to undisclose this stuff, but they can't do. But a lot of them is not going to do it to the public. So when they asking all these people in that family, you heard what he just said. He's turned around and then said they can't disclose it to the public anyway. So they have to tell us that they haven't seen anything. And if they did see it, they can't tell us anyway. So we can't go by with these nonsense people in that. You see what I'm saying?
This is different from a CIA disclosure or FBI disclosure. This is a Congress disclosure. And that means something a little bit different. As we can see earlier, we can hear in the demonstration that we saw earlier that the American public don't trust the FBI and the CIA.
Yeah. But now what they're saying is they need to disclose the information they got from witnesses and other people, because they disclose it. Like when they, when somebody sees something, they'll go to them, they'll tell them what they see, they'll put it in a secret so they won't let it get out. So what they're saying is they have to open all this stuff up and take it seriously and stop taking it as a joke.
Yeah, I was
because now it's becoming a national threat.
Yeah, you was telling me earlier how the FBI did a disclosure about what happened down in Texas. And I was just, letting the people know that this is different from an FBI. We can't just look at it and say, well, they both the government. No, this is something much bigger than the FBI disclosure. Because when you think of the FBI and CIA, you've seen them involved in all type of crooked and unnecessary and necessary evils. Well, you haven't had that with Congress. Congress has always presented themselves as one who tried to get things right.
Yeah.
Congress have been a representation of the people, supposedly.
Yeah. And they're trying to force the people, they're trying to force these other agencies to tell them that we're not going to allow this to keep happening, and y'all lying to the people. And they even going at the media and saying y'all is going to start investigating on this stuff.
Yes, and you see what Congress is, they ready to stand up like, hold up. We don't work for you. You work for us.
Yeah.
So we're experiencing something like something I've never. I mean, this is bigger than. To me,
this is a new step, and people don't understand. This is a new step.
Yeah.
Into a new era, into a new consciousness, into a new understanding of life, of how shit goes. We were so disclosed, we were so closed in through just religion, and not understanding even our religion ancestors, even our ancient ancestors have been telling us about this. We just haven't felt the way to understand it yet. So it's getting to a point where now, when this shit start opening, and hopefully, I'm just saying, it's gonna be to a point where a UFO and meeting these people might become normal one day, and it's crazy. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
What if you find out? What if you find out something that I've always kind of wondered and thought? Well, I'm not going to put that information out here.
Oh, we were talking about like somebody, like certain people might be.
Yeah, man. A certain whole group of people might just be they people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Like they've been saying it, because if now they're saying that this stuff is real, then you have to start understanding what about these things that y'all start calling conspiracy, when they start talking about the certain alien race that has power over top, who's been here the whole time. And you have to start questioning all of this stuff now. It ain't a conspiracy no more.
Bump that. I mean, we talking about shapeshifters and shit. I mean, what if your wife?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
you found out your wife.
I agree with that. Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. I mean, this shit, it can get crazy like that, bro.
Yeah. I mean, let's think about it. Our blood is different. Even when they found that I forgot that lady name, they took her blood by secret, and her blood had to cure the cancer, to cure I forgot a certain disease. And
Yeah,
she had
this
a
could
rare
be so
disease.
crazy. This could be so crazy that yo General Yohanas and all of them, could be the one of them, and got all these people subservient to them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Dr. Yogdor said he was one, and people thought he was crazy.
Yeah,
Maybe he
I
was.
mean,
I'm
that's why
just
I said
saying. You know what I
that.
mean?
That's the very reason why I said that, because he was one of those leaders, and he said he was one.
Yeah.
You know,
You know what I
maybe
mean?
he
Then we
was
just got to
saying,
start searching on the Anunnaki, what them
yeah,
people talking. I mean, just hey,
maybe
just open up a
everybody
wide world.
hated. Maybe everybody hated him because he was exposing something for real.
Exactly.
You know,
So
you
we'll
see all
get
the people with the fake noses, fake booties, fake changing themselves looking European, and he exposed all of that, and it was all a part of the same agenda.
Yeah. I mean, just look at the technology. Look at the technology they have, and they trying to make synthetic embryos. This is not a human technology. This is a technology that's advanced that they're getting from somebody, and people don't understand that. They're using advanced technology because they've been having contact with these what Dr. Yo called angelic beings, but alien, extraterrestrials, UPAs, whatever they want to call them. They are getting advanced technology from these people, or either they are attacking these people, taking them and taking them captive like they do anybody else, and then studying on them and taking their technology and trying to advance on our technology with it. Or either they have contact with them. We don't know.
You think about movies like Bigfoot with Big Chewbacca. You know what I'm saying? Have you ever thought that maybe that was Chewbacca was a Sasquatch?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, whoever thought it, or Harry and the Hendersons?
Yeah, I mean, because like it's always like, where did they get this? Where did they get this idea from? This is nothing that most humans don't just get an idea out their heads and boom, let me just make this type of character. You know what I'm saying? It's something that based off something.
Could this not be why you can't find the Sasquatch? Because every time you run, he get beamed up to motherfucking beam me up body.
Yeah.
You know, you get to looking for him and they beam his ass on the spaceship, and y'all still looking in the forest for him.
Yeah.
He up there with Star Wars. I mean, could not they have already known this? We have had pictures. I'm going to look for this picture of Harriet Truman. It was called the Grenada Treaty.
Yeah.
It's a picture of Harriet Truman, the president, shaking hands in a treaty called the Grenada Treaty. That they was making treaties with fucking aliens.
Yeah. Yeah. And back then they were trying to tell you, oh, this wasn't real. That was, you see what I'm saying? That's what they do because they control the people mind. They control the media. They control everything. They can tell people all this stuff, and people don't believe it. People stuck in a box of what they think is reality, but they don't know what reality is because we don't know what fully reality is. We know what their reality is. We know the reality they gave us. If you believe, even if a person, let's say some of religious people, a person believes in the Bible, and they say that God split the waters from the heavens, right? And if you go into the waters, there's all type of beings. It's beings that we can't even reach. We can't even get to the bottom of the ocean, right? It's beings that we'll never know that existed unless we find a way all the way down there. What makes you think it's not beings in the sky? You see what I'm saying? What makes you think it's not beings in there? We have birds, they just not in the space. So we have things that we know that's that's above us. So whatever stuff above them that we can't just get to, you know what I'm saying? And that's how I always thought of stuff, because the waters is like space. It's gravity. You can't breathe up there. You have to have a suit. A diving suit that they make on the ship on a boat is the same. That is the same suit they will make in space. It's the same thing. They need oxygen. They need something to carry oxygen into the suit.
Yeah, you look up the Grenada Treaty, like I'm doing here, and you'll see all of this information, man. You talking about it's one thing right here, guy. It's talking about Eisenhower had 3 secret meetings with him.
Yeah.
President Reagan had meetings with him. Eisenhower, Truman.
Yeah, even like I said, Hillary Clinton was when she become president, she was gonna open up the Area 51, and you know she wasn't gonna win because of that. They asked Obama, even though he was trying to be on like a little comedy jump to make it funny, but they asked him about aliens. He said, "I can't tell you about it."
Yeah.
So when somebody said, "I can't tell you about it," that means it exists. I just can't talk about it.
Yeah, well, I'll get killed. I just can't do it. But this thing here, I need to take that back. I said Harriet Truman. I meant Eisenhower all along.
Okay.
Look up the Grenada Treaty with Eisenhower and aliens. It's an alien treaty.
Yeah. I mean, think about what Trump just did. People talking about Trump just made it big to fight against. Man, Trump made a U.S. space military force. You hear me? U.S. space military force, like a Star Trek. Not just no movie shit. They making a spaceship where the military people are going to be in space and will be able to protect America in space from ancestral beings. I mean, extraterrestrial beings, and from other countries that's going to be in space too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because see what it is that other countries is making treaties with these things too.
Yeah.
You know, and if you go back further enough, you come to find out, like I was stating, that when you go look off into alien history and stuff and stories, you go back to the Vedas and those ancient Indian stories that talk about how the world was destroyed by wars that was taking place by extraterrestrial beings in the sky.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's scriptures in the Bible that says that there were wars in heavens and stuff like that. More so like your Revelations and stuff like that.
Yeah. But people took it in the religious code.
Yeah, I was like, could that not be some type of code, secret code, coded message or information there?
Yeah. I think it's people at a time that didn't know what it really was. Just like Ezekiel with the wheel, just like you know what I mean, just like certain things, they didn't know what it was, so they try to explain it the best they could.
Yeah,
right,
you know, I like how that one guy said, "Hey, we just need to observe the facts. Don't get to speculating shit. Don't get to acting like you know something about this shit. Just watch and write down what the facts that you observe right then and there. Don't wait until tomorrow till you get to add an extra shit that wasn't there. Write the facts down immediately as you saw it and stick to those damn facts right there. Because your mind will play tricks on you, be like, no, I didn't see that. Well, did I see that for real? Or no, he had a red coat. No, he wasn't a red coat. He might have.
These ain't mental ill people. These ain't people who wanted to see the UFO. These are people that was working in the military. They've been 20 years and doing different things, engineering, know about how the crafts work, know how they secret machines work, knowing that these machines that they seen was not human basic made. Okay, so these are not crazy people. These are not civilian people. They are people who worked in the government for over 20 years.
You know, in this particular video, this was the video that I was telling you about that I was watching last night. This is the actual video. And later on in this video, he was one of the pilots that was up there dealing with him, like, man, these things is over Mach 10. He said, we as humans have never made nothing to go past Mach 9.
Yeah, they asked them, did they have the technology? Do we have the technology to defend ourselves against them? They said no. So that's why they're trying to learn, because it's a threat. Because if these extraterrestrials come right now, they would take over. And they notice that's why they said they're coming down here and studying what type of weaponry we got. What about the nuclear? Because the nuclear weapon is the strongest thing we have. And they want to know what type of weapons we have it using it. You know what I'm saying? What is our weakness?
Yeah, and the nuclear weapons are so powerful that we can blow our own Earth up, which could damage their whole agenda.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're observing us. And while we sitting there saying, oh, they're not real, they fake, they ain't nothing in the sky, they're observing us the whole time. They know we real. Why they don't know they real?
You notice
that's the problem.
You notice some of You notice some of the biggest sightings are always around nuclear facilities, oceans.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm gonna
Yep.
play about 15 more. I'm gonna play about 15 more of the video. Then we can stop and talk some more on it.
Yeah, my battery is about to die out pretty soon. I'm gonna have to at
Okay.
least plug it up or something.
All right, I'm gonna play a little bit more for the people so they don't y'all don't just hear us talking. Again, this is the Congressman. These are the senators. These the people in the military, the whistleblowers. These all talking, having a meeting together. Okay, this is the government. Government, the laddie I say y'all trust, the government.
And this is, we want to let it be known that these clips are used for entertainment and educational purposes. We can't play the entire video, people. So we encourage you to go over, look up UFO disclosures, and look up how the officials claim government hold UFOs. U.S. Congress.
They've been doing it. They've been having this meeting for like a week. So
yeah,
we're just showing you a piece of it.
Yeah, we're not
go.
even going to show. We're not even going to show. We're just showing the very beginning of it. I mean, they really gets into it in this video. I mean, I was like appalled watching it, man. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck is we going to do now? Like, what are we going to do about this information?
Yeah. All right, I'm ready to start.
Maneuvers that are unexplainable due to our current understanding of our technology and our capabilities as a country. And that applies for the military as well.
Mr.
Yeah, I concur with that. We have nothing that can stop in midair and go the other direction, nor do we have anything that can, like in our situation, come down from space, hang out for 3 hours, and go back up.
Thank you. My last question, and sometimes I know that you have also said some of these answers in the past, but we're trying to get them on the public record as well, which is really important. Mr. Gresh, finally, do you believe that our government is in possession of UAPs?
Absolutely, based on interviewing over 40 witnesses over 4 years.
And where?
I know the exact locations, and those locations were provided to the Inspector General and some of which to the intelligence committees. I actually had the people with the firsthand knowledge provide a protected disclosure to the Inspector General.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, I would just say that I think that these questions are important questions, and I look forward to being involved in the process to get those answered. I know there'll be a lot of questions from the committee members, so I yield back.
Thank you. We'll go to Mr. Burchett himself.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Garcia. I would like to have you on my legislation to do just that on the reporting, and we'll get together on that. Maybe you can be my co-sponsor on that. That'd be really cool. Thank you for those great questions. Mr. Graves, again, I'd like to know, how do you know that these were not our aircraft?
Some of the behaviors that we saw in a working area, we would see these objects being at 0.0 Mach, that's 0 airspeed, over certain pieces of the ground. So what that means, just like a river, if you throw a bobber in, it's going to float downstream. These objects were staying completely stationary in Category 4 hurricane winds. These same objects would then accelerate to supersonic speeds, 1.1, 1.2 Mach, and they would do so in very erratic and quick behaviors that I don't have an explanation for.
Okay. Have you spoken to commercial and military pilots that have seen these off of our East Coast?
I have.
Okay. Mr. Fravor, I noticed that in the Tic Tac video, it's Tic Tac like the candy, not TikTok like the Chinese Communist app.
That's correct.
Yes, sir. I just want to make that because my daughter corrected me on that and called me a boomer and said, "Hey, boomer." And I said, "No, baby, it's Tic Tac like the candy. You're going to have to just look it up." And but now I would also like to say today is a day of many firsts. It's a miracle that we're having this meeting, and it's also a miracle that my wife has put up with me for 9 years today. Today is my anniversary, so I want to tell my wife happy anniversary and that I love her very much. As she likes to say, this 9 years have been the best 2 years of her life. So thank you. Mr. Fravor, what astonished you the most about the flight capabilities of these Tic Tac, very briefly?
The performance, absolute performance. It was.
And you're not aware of any other objects that anybody in the world has in this world that has those capabilities?
No, I think it's far beyond actually our material science that we currently possess.
Are you aware of any other reconnaissance platforms that have tracked or recorded the Tic Tacs maneuvers, maybe the NORAD system or any of the others?
I am not.
Okay. Mr. Grush.
Far beyond our material
thank you for being
science.
here, brother. Thank you all very much. Have you faced any retaliation or reprisals for any of your testimony or anything on these lines?
Yeah, I have to be careful what I say in detail because there is an open whistleblower reprisal investigation on my behalf, and I don't want to compromise that investigation by providing anything that may help provide somebody information. But it was very brutal and very unfortunate, some of the tactics they used to hurt me both professionally and personally, to be quite frank. Yeah.
It's very unfortunate. As they say, when you're over the target, that's when they do the most firing at you. Do you have any personal knowledge of people who have been harmed or injured in efforts to cover up or conceal these extraterrestrial technology?
Yes.
Ooh, yeah, but listen, man.
Anyone been murdered that you would think that you know of?
You know he ain't
or
gonna say
heard
that.
of,
Come on,
I guess?
I have to be careful asking that question. I've directed people with that knowledge to the appropriate.
Maybe in a,
I know that's right.
Get in a confidential area.
They tried
Skiff,
to
we can
man
talk
kill.
about that, but unfortunately, we were denied access to the skiff, and that's very unfortunate in this scenario. Mr. Favor, do you believe that you witnessed an additional object under the water in relation to your encounter?
I will say we did not see an object. There was something there to cause the whitewater, and when we turned around, it was gone. So there was something there that obviously moved.
Okay, it was not the same object though that you were looking at, correct?
No, we actually joked that the Tic Tac was communicating with something when we came back, and because the whitewater disappeared.
We were in another instance, we're told about the capabilities of a jamming during viewing of when there were some people chasing some of these objects. Did you experience any of that jamming or interrupting your radar or weapons system?
My crew that launched after we landed experienced significant jamming to the APG-73 radar, which was what we had on board, which is a mechanically scanned, very high-end system prior to the APG-79. And yes, it did pretty much everything you could do: range, velocity, aspect, and then it spit the lock, and the targeting pod is passive. That's what we were able to get the video on.
I'm about to run out of time, but are you aware of any of our enemies that have that capability?
No.
Okay, I would also like to note for the record that like George Knapp breaking Area 51, he's the reason I knew about that. And the reason I know about the Tic Tacs is Leslie Keene from New York Times article, and I would encourage everybody to read that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yield back to you for no time.
Very good. Mr. Raskin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Graves, you reported UAP encounters during training flights, I think, and have since come forward to warn the Pentagon that these encounters may be putting pilots at risk. My first question is, you've identified these as taking place on the East Coast. Is it just on the East Coast where these encounters have been reported?
No, since the events initially occurred, I've learned that the objects have been detected essentially where all operations, Navy operations are being conducted across the world. And that's from the All Domain Anomaly Resolutions Office reporting.
All right, can you describe your experience after you decided to come forward and go public with your experience?
Certainly. Like many others, in 2017, I saw the New York Times article come out as well. And for me, it was special because I recognized the voices on the video. I recognized the video itself. I had seen it when it was taken. I seen it when it was debriefed. And so that was kind of shook me because I realized that this problem was still ongoing. And so I reached out to colleagues back on the East Coast and realized that this was still a safety risk that they were dealing with, that they had essentially hit a wall with how they could move forward on this conversation. It was at that point when I decided to try to move the conversation forward myself.
Are there common characteristics to the UAPs that have been cited by different pilots? And can you describe what the convergence of descriptions is?
Certainly. We were primarily seeing dark gray or black cubes inside of a clear sphere.
I'm sorry, dark gray or black cubes?
Yes,
Yeah.
inside of a clear sphere, where the apex or tips of the cube were touching the inside of that sphere. And that was primarily what was being reported when we were able to gain a visual tally of these objects. And that occurred over almost 8 years. And as far as I know, it's still occurring.
So I take it that you're arguing what we need is real transparency in a reporting system so we can get some clarity on what's going on out there, because there are many pilots in your situation, but we should have a way of developing a systematic inventory of all of such encounters. Is that right?
Yes, and I think we need both transparency and the reporting. We have the reporting, but we need to make sure that information can be promulgated to commercial aviation as well as the rest of the populace.
Mr. Grush, what about you? What was your experience after you came forward?
Well, it's only been about 2 months or so. So I guess my experience has been overwhelming support from former colleagues of mine that have privately messaged me, and I do appreciate that. But I do have knowledge of active planned reprisal activity against myself and other colleagues, and it's very upsetting to me.
Coming from where?
Certain senior leadership at previous agencies I was associated with. And that's all I'll say publicly, but I can provide more details in a closed environment.
Okay. Well, I hope you understand that there would be bipartisan rejection of any attempt to vilify, demonize, or engage in other reprisals against our witnesses and people who are telling the truth from their perspective.
Yeah, there were certain colleagues of mine
Sure
that
that
were
they warned the
brutally
people
administratively attacked.
it will be
And that actually makes me
consequences
very upset
and
as a leader to see that happen
doing
to
harm to these
coworkers and
witnesses.
actually
Is what they
superiors of mine over
Well,
the last 3 years.
How do you account for that response? That seems like a bizarre response.
I call it administrative terrorism. That's their quiver, their tool in the toolbox to silence people, especially, the career government service cares about their career, cares about their clearance, their reputation to climb the ladder. And when you threaten that career path, a lot of people back off. But I'm here to represent those people. So.
Mr. Fravor, what about you? What has your experience been since you've come forward with your perspective on this?
Actually, I've been treated very well. And the 6 people that were involved, myself included, all of them have or will be retiring from the military as 05s or 06s. And all my friends that are very senior, 3 and 4 stars, I've talked to them. They believe, they understand there's a problem. But no, I was actually treated really well.
And what is your general interpretation of these phenomena, or what is your current thinking of trying to make sense of them?
Well, I'll say, I'm not like a UFO fanatic. It's not me, but I will tell you that what we saw with 4 sets of eyes over a 5-minute period, still, we have nothing close to it. It was amazing to see. I told my buddy I wanted to fly it, but yeah, it's just an incredible technology.
All right, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I'll yield back to you.
Thanks. On to Ms. Luna.
Mr. Grush, in speaking to you yesterday, I just wanted to follow up on Representative Raskin's questions. In the last couple of years, have you had incidences that have caused you to be in fear for your life for addressing these issues?
Yes, personally. Yeah.
I just want everyone to note that he's coming forward in fear of his life. To put in perspective, if they were really not scared about this information coming out, why would someone be intimidated like that? To your knowledge, are NHIs working with adversarial foreign governments in either technology exchange programs or back engineering programs?
I don't have data on that. I'm not sure.
Have you heard or you had people come forward to present that evidence?
Not that particular evidence that you just espoused.
Okay. On the 19th of April, Dr. Kirkpatrick, head of Aero, had said that he did not find any evidence of UAPs. You also stated that you had, in your interview, that you had briefed him on information that you were uncovering to him pertinent to national security.
Yes, him and I had a classified conversation in April 2022 before he took over Aero in July 2022, and I provided him some concerns I had.
Do you know why he might not have followed up with you?
Unfortunately, I cannot read his mind. I wish he did. I was happy to give sage counsel to him on where to look when he took the helm of Arrow.
Okay, and then my last question for you before I move department to speak on certain issues, correct?
Correct, through DOPSR, DoD Pre-Publication and Security Review. And I just want to remind the public, they're just looking from a security perspective. These are my own personal views and opinions, not the department's.
Okay, I'm asking that though mainly because I think that there are many people that would like to discredit you. So it does bring a certain amount of credibility to your testimony.
I'm required by law to do that as a former intelligence officer, or I go to jail for revealing
Well,
classified information.
Yeah, we don't want you to
Yeah.
go to jail. My next question would actually be for Mr. Graves. Can you please explain to me in detail the event that occurred at Vandenberg Air Force Base?
Certainly. In the 2003 timeframe, a large group of Boeing contractors were operating near one of the launch facilities at Vandenberg Air Force Base when they observed a very large 100-yard sided red square approach the base from the ocean and hover at low altitude over one of the launch facilities. This object remained for about 45 seconds or so before darting off over the mountains. There was a similar event within 24 hours later in the evening. This was a morning event, I believe 8:45 in the morning. Later in the evening, post-sunset, there were reports of other sightings on base, including some aggressive behaviors. These objects were approaching some of the security guards at rapid speeds before darting off. And this is information that was received through one of the witnesses that have approached me at Americans for Safe Aerospace.
Was this documented in any official form, whether it was a police blotter?
Yes, they had official documentation and records from the event that the witness held over the years.
And I'm not going to ask you to do it right now for time reasons, but you'd be able to sketch what was witnessed, correct? And have you seen that before on any other equipment and or during your flight time?
I have not seen what they've described. This object was estimated to be almost the size of a football field, and I have not seen anything personally that large.
Okay, and then another question on follow-up referencing the gimbal video Go Fast incident. Can you just clarify, because to our understanding, the footage was actually cut off at a certain point, but what happens at the end of that video, just for those Americans specifically there that are wanting to know about the rest of that footage?
Certainly. There was some uncertainty or instability with the object. It seemed to rock a bit, and that's the last I had seen of the video. Much of the data that I would recommend be analyzed would consist of radar data that would provide precise kinematics on the object, as well as the fleet of objects that were operating nearby.
Okay, and follow-up, in regards to the reporting procedures that Mr. Garcia had addressed on, as well as Representative Burchett, with the FAA, to your understanding, pilots that are seeing this, commercial airline pilots, are they receiving cease and desist letters from corporations for coming forward with information in regards to safety for potential airline passengers?
I have been made privy to conversations with commercial aviators who have received cease and desist orders.
So the American public should know that corporations are putting their own reputations on the basic, not the line, but ahead of the safety of the American people. And I think, would you agree with that statement?
It appears so.
Okay. And I guess this would be my last, oh, I'm out of time. I yield. I'll be back.
Good. Mr. Moskowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, let's talk about the physics for a second. Mr. Graves and Commander Favor, I heard you talk about speed. When those objects broke the sound barrier, did they make a sonic boom?
I was in a jet. You can't hear anything. It's kind of loud in there.
Yeah, you're not able to actually personally tell within the vehicle. I will say the objects that we were seeing, they were spherical, and they were observed up to Mach 2, which is a very non-aerodynamic shape.
What about G-forces? Let's talk about G-forces of those vehicles. Could a human survive those G-forces with known technology today?
No.
No, not for the acceleration rates that we observed.
Okay. What about what they look like? How close did you get? Did you see a seam or a rivet or a section? And what I mean is, obviously, the jets you're flying have all those things. Did these objects have those?
Do you want to go?
I didn't have the detail to be able to tell that.
So we got within a half mile at Tic Tac, which people say that's pretty far, but in airplanes, that's actually relatively close. No, it was perfectly white, smooth, no windows. Although when we did take the original FLIR video that is out there, When you put it on a big screen, it actually had two little objects that came out of the bottom of it. But other than that, no windows, no seams, no nothing.
Mr. Grush, as a result of your previous government work, have you met with people with direct knowledge or have direct knowledge yourself of non-human origin craft?
Yes, I personally interviewed those individuals.
Mr. Grush, as a result of your previous government work, have you met with people with direct knowledge or have direct knowledge yourself about ATs, advanced technologies that the U.S. government has?
Based on conventional advanced tech, I was briefed to the preponderance of the Defense Department's both space and aerospace compartmented programs. Yeah.
Do you have knowledge or do you have reason to believe that there are programs in the advanced tech space that are unsanctioned?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yeah. And
when you say that they're above congressional oversight, what do you mean?
Complicated question. So there's, some, I would call it abuse here. So congressional oversight of conventional special access programs. So I'll use Title 10, so DOD as an example, right? So 10 U.S. Code Section 119 discusses congressional oversight of SAPs, discusses the DepSecDef's ability to waive congressional reporting. However, the Gang of Eight is at least supposed to be notified if a waived or waive bigoted unacknowledged SAP is created, and that's public law.
Well, so that how does, I mean, I don't want to cut you off, but
Yeah.
how does a program like that get funded?
I will give you generalities. I can get very specific in a closed session, but misappropriation of funds and
Does that mean
self-fund.
that there is money in the budget that is said to go to a program, but it doesn't, and it goes to something else?
Yes, I have specific knowledge of that. Yep.
Do you think U.S. corporations are overcharging for certain tech they're selling to the U.S. government, and that additional money is going to programs?
Correct, through something called IRAD.
Okay. Satellite imagery. Let's talk about satellite imagery. We have satellites all over the place, some that we're aware of and many that we're not aware of, right? We're taking pictures of everything at every point and second. Mr. Grush, are you aware, do you have direct knowledge, or have you talked to people with direct knowledge that there are satellite imagery of these events?
That was one of my primary tasks at NGA, since we process, exploit, and disseminate that kind of information. I've seen multiple cases, some of which, to my understanding, and of course, I left NGA in April, so that's my information cutoff date. But I personally reviewed both what we call overhead collection and from other strategic and tactical platforms that I could not even explain prosaically. And I have a degree in physics, by the way, as well. And I am aware that you guys have not seen these reports, unfortunately. And I don't know why.
Do you have direct knowledge, or you've spoken to people with direct knowledge that this imagery applies to crash sites, crash imagery?
I can't discuss that in an open session.
Okay. Do you have any
Keep saying
information that the US
symbol
government
up.
is involved in a
Behind.
disinformation campaign to deny the existence of
Look at the
certain
hands right,
UAPs?
right to the right of.
I can't go beyond what I've already stated publicly in my News Nation interview because it touches other sensitivities.
Okay. I'll yield the balance of my time back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Fox?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank our witnesses for being here today. Mr. Garouche, in your sworn testimony, you state that the United States government has retrieved supposedly extraterrestrial spacecraft and other UAP-related artifacts. You go so far as to state that the U.S. is in possession of, quote, non-human spacecraft, end quote, and that some of these artifacts have circulated with defense contractors. Several other former military and intelligence officials have come forward with similar allegations, albeit in non-public settings. However, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, the director of AARO, previously testified before Congress that there has been, and I quote, no credible evidence thus far of extraterrestrial activity or of, quote, off-world technology brought to the attention of the office. To your knowledge, is that statement correct?
It's not accurate. I believe Dr. Kirkpatrick mentioned he had about 30 individuals that have come to Arrow thus far. A few of those individuals have also come to Arrow that I also interviewed,
Okay.
and I know what they provided Dr. Kirkpatrick and their team.
Okay.
I was able to evaluate
Okay,
that
I
information.
need to go on.
Sure.
But my understanding that his statement is accurate, came from a direct quote. And this contradiction is a perfect example of why we need to inject transparency into our government. And for another example, look no further than the pitiful response to the Chinese spy balloon debacle earlier this year. You may remember the mass confusion that ensued when the balloon was first spotted over Montana, 4 days after it first entered U.S. airspace over Alaska. The Biden administration's initial inability to address the object grew into a continuous series of embarrassments. After news of the balloon reached the mainstream media, we were assured that the balloon posed no threat to our security. However, after the balloon was allowed to transit the entire continental United States, fighter jets were scrambled off the coast of South Carolina to shoot it down. This flip-flopping and obfuscation caused needless confusion, fear, and panic across the country. It's my hope, Mr. Chairman, that this sort of confusion will not be repeated. We should investigate the extent to which elements of our government possess or do not possess information that is of critical value to the American people. We owe it to the citizens of this nation to make sure that our government is transparent and accountable. We must make sure that our government provides answers, and Congress must do its duty to solicit those answers. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Yeah, Mr. Frost.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In 2022, NASA announced that it was commissioning an independent study team to examine UAPs. The NASA team is comprised of scientists across different fields, as well as former astronauts and pilots. In May, the independent study team held its first public meeting, which included the perspectives from NASA senior leaders, as well as perspectives from the Department of Defense and intelligence agencies. The NASA study team is also expected to release its first report pretty soon, and I think it's safe to say that we all eagerly await its results. Mr. Graves, how might NASA's research influence the commercial industry regarding safety in UAP?
I think NASA has a big role to play as far as commercial aviation safety, and it's one of their original charges as an organization. One of the recommendations that have been put forward is to utilize their existing aviation safety reporting system to serve as a short-term fill and trusted platform for pilots that want to report on UAP. It also has built-in analytics capability and is funded by Congress.
Gotcha. And also, Mr. Graves, are there any other industries that may be influenced by the NASA research on UAPs? And if so, how so?
Well, I think there is a large swath of commercial capabilities that could be brought to bear on this topic, from space-based or ground-based sensor systems that are available open source or through commercial marketplaces. And I think NASA's work, as they work to identify and highlight specific parameters that can be found, we can take that information and promulgate this through the public sector so that we can have a more open conversation about what we're seeing.
You know, in 2020, the Department of Defense released several videos of UAPs, including Mr. Freyr's experience, U.S. Navy pilots that recorded footage. In 2021, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence released a preliminary report on UAP events. NASA Administrator Bill Nelson stated that NASA would begin to investigate these events. In fact, I sit on Science, Space, and Technology Committee, and when we were doing a hearing with the NASA Administrator Bill Nelson, I asked, you know, why NASA needed to be fully funded. And there were many great reasons, but one of them was actually had to do with UAPs. He actually mentioned, you know, is there life out there? I don't know. And so either way, these actions ultimately led NASA to assemble the independent study team that I mentioned earlier. Also in 2021, Harvard University stood up the Galileo project to research and examine the origins of UAP. So it seems like both, you know, from NASA and in the higher education community, because of the work that y'all have done and people standing up, you know, I think we're seeing some of that stigma slowly going away. Mr. Freyer, do you believe that military pilots feeling empowered to share their UAP experiences has directly impacted the scientific community's research goals on this topic?
I would say yes. I would say that, starting in 2017, when it actually came out, it took that stigma away. I mean, I've talked to multiple senators who said prior to that, if you'd have mentioned UAP, you'd have been laughed off the hill. And now we're sitting here today for a public testimony on what's actually going on. I'm hoping that this curve will be more of an exponential and we'll get more and more transparent to the level that we can.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, I mean, it's important. I couldn't imagine, I'm not a pilot, but I used to fly gliders in Civil Air Patrol. Huh? Yeah, yeah.
Pilot?
And so either way, I mean, I couldn't imagine, being in the glider and seeing something, and then not feeling like I had the agency to talk about it. Mr. Graves, can you discuss the importance of seeking scientists to sit on your advisory board?
Absolutely. I think ultimately this is going to be a scientific problem. And not only that, it's also an engineering problem. I've been working with the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics to help them stand up a UAP integration committee to help integrate their engineering prowess into this problem. And so, yes, very much, I think this is an engineering and scientific problem as much as a national security problem.
And how might Congress help to facilitate partnerships between the scientific community and the UAP focus groups within government?
Well, I think one of the things they can do is to have these types of hearings to communicate to the public that this is a topic of interest. I think that there is a pseudo market, if you will, of interested capabilities and talent that want to approach this topic. And we're seeing that start to grow now. So I think continued conversation, reduction of stigma is going to allow that to flourish and allow answers to help generate themselves.
100%. Well, thank you all for being here. Thank you for your work. I think it's important that we keep our top scientific minds focused on this issue and look for ways to increase collaboration. Thank you so much. I yield back.
Mr. Comer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me say I want to thank you for having this hearing, and I want to thank Mr. Burchett, Ms. Luna for leading this hearing. And with that, I yield my 5 minutes to Mr. Burchett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to direct this, I believe, to Mr. Grush, but if any of you all feel like you need to jump in, just jump right in. We're good. Has the U.S. government become aware of actual evidence of extraterrestrial, otherwise unexplained forms of intelligence? And if so, when do you think this first occurred?
I like to use the term non-human. I don't like to denote origin. Keeps the aperture open, both scientifically. Certainly, like I've discussed publicly previously, 1930s.
Okay. Can you give me the names and titles of the people with direct firsthand knowledge and access to some of this crash retrieval, some of these crash retrieval programs, and maybe which facilities, military bases that the recovered material would be in? And I know a lot of Congress have talked about we're going to go to Area 51 and, and there's nothing there anymore anyway. It's just, and we move like a glacier. And as soon as we announce it, I'm sure the moving vans would pull up, but please.
I can't discuss that publicly, but I did provide that information both to the Intel committees and the Inspector General.
And we could get that in the skiff if we were allowed to get in a skiff with you. Would that be probably what you would think?
Sure, if you had the appropriate accesses, yeah.
What special access programs cover this information, and how is it possible that they have evaded oversight for so long?
I do know the names. Once again, I can't discuss that publicly and how they've evaded oversight. In a closed setting, I can tell you the specific tradecraft used.
All right. When do you think those programs began, and who authorized them?
I do know a lot of that information, but that's something I can't discuss publicly because of sensitive.
All right. If any of y'all want to jump in on any of this, you're more than welcome to. What level of security clearance is required to fully access these programs?
Well, anybody who has.
And I say that because myself, Representative Gates and Representative Luna were basically turned away at one point at Eglin. So please go right ahead.
Certainly difference between member access and say somebody like me, but anybody who has a TSSCI clearance and meets the eligibility criteria, the access adjudicative authority should be able to grant you access.
Ms. Burchett, if you'll yield. So just to put a fine point on that, there's nothing that you're aware of that's above special access program classification.
It's a misnomer that there's anything actually above top secret. Executive Order 13526 delineates the classification levels.
Right. But I draw a point on that because we can have access to those programs. It defies our typical muscle memory here in Congress. Thank you, Mr. Burchett. I'll yield back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Gates. Along those lines, Title 10, you may not know this or not, but Title 10 and Title 50 authorization, they seem to say they're inefficient. So who gets to decide this, in your opinion, in the past?
It's a group of career senior executive officials,
Okay, are they government officials?
both
Or-
in and out,
Do what?
both in and out of government, and that's about as far
I
as I
got
can
you.
go there.
All
Yeah.
right, well, that leads to my next question. Which private corporations are directly involved in this program? How much taxpayer money has been invested in these programs, to your knowledge? I mean, we audit the Pentagon every year, and I've been here 5 years, and they failed the dadgum thing every year. They lose over $1 billion a year, we think, and I was told Department of Defense, maybe 60% of their assets are unaccounted for, whatever the heck that means. In the public sector, you go to jail for that kind of crap. So tell me.
Yeah, I know when I'm a dollar off of my DTS travel voucher, I get hammered, but it seems like it doesn't work the other
If
way,
you
right?
sell over
Yeah.
if you sell over $600 worth of stuff on eBay, now you get a call from the IRS. So please, what corporations?
Yeah, I don't know the specific metrics towards the end of your question. The specific corporations I did provide to the committees in specific divisions, and I spent 11 and a half hours with both Intel committees. So.
Okay, has there been an active U.S. government disinformation campaign to deny the existence of unidentified aerial phenomena? And if so, why?
I can't go beyond what I've already espoused publicly about that.
Okay, I've been told to ask you what that is and how to get it in the record.
Which
What have you stated publicly in your interviews for the congressional record?
If you reference my News Nation interview and I talk about a multi-decade, campaign to disenfranchise public interest,
Sorry, Mr.
Basically.
Chairman, I've gone.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
apologize, Mr. Chairman. I yield back negative 21 seconds.
Thank you. Ms. Ocasio-Cortez?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses for coming here today. I do concur with the ranking member as well as several other members here on this committee that this is a committee for whistleblowers and for the protection of whistleblowers as well. So we understand what you're putting on the table here and what you're putting on the line here, and we thank you for that. Mr. Grush, you sat on the Unidentified Anomalous Phenomenon Task Force created in the 2020 NDAA, correct?
Yes.
There have been some things that have been mentioned here during this hearing that I wanted to pick up on. Mr. Graves, you mentioned specifically during the answers to one of your questions, you named Boeing contractors being engaged in an incident regarding this red cube about a football field wide. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about the interaction, or Mr. Grush, either of you, the interactions between defense contractor companies and any UAP-related programs or activities.
So I'll just say that the information about the contractor himself were provided by a witness, and I have no particular detail in that relationship.
Mr. Grush.
The kind of general unclassed wave tops, certainly the contractors, are the metal benders, so to speak. They're the ones actually doing specific performance on government contracts.
Are they required to issue any disclosure regarding UAP sightings, or do they engage in any reporting around this?
In terms of the contractors,
Yes.
not that I'm aware of.
They do not. Okay. Now, when it comes to notification that you had mentioned about IRAD programs, we have seen defense contractors abuse their contracts before through this committee. I have seen it personally, and I have also seen the notification requirements to Congress abused. I am wondering, one of the loopholes that we see in the law is that there is, at least from my vantage point, is that
Mr. Fravor, I noticed that in the Tic Tac video, it's Tic Tac like the candy, not TikTok like the Chinese communist.
And I'm somewhat informed on the matter, having served on the Armed Services Committee for 7 years, having served on the committee that oversees DARPA and advanced technologies for several years. When we spoke with the flight crew, and when he showed us the photo that he'd taken, I asked why the video wasn't engaged, why we didn't have a FLIR system that worked. Here's what he said. They were out on a test mission that day over the Gulf of Mexico. And when you're on a test mission, you're supposed to have clear airspace. Not supposed to be anything that shows up. And they saw a sequence of 4 craft in a clear diamond formation for which there is a radar sequence that I alone have observed in the United States Congress. One of the pilots goes to check out that diamond formation and sees a large floating, what I can only describe as an orb. Again, like I said, not of any human capability that I'm aware of. And when he approached, he said that his radar went down. He said that his FLIR system malfunctioned and that he had to manually take this image from one of the lenses, and it was not automated in collection as you would typically see in a test mission. So I guess I'll start with Commander Fravor. How should we think about the fact that this craft that was approached by our pilot had the capability of disarming a number of the sensor and collection systems on that craft?
Well, I think this goes to that national security side, and you can go back through history of things showing up at certain areas and disabling our capabilities, which is disheartening. And for us, I mean, like I said, it completely disabled the radar in the aircraft when it tried to do it. And the only way we could see it is passively, which is how he got that image. So I think that's a concern on what are these doing, not only how do they operate, but their capabilities inside to do things like this.
And how should we think about 4 craft moving in a very clear formation, equidistant from one another, in a diamond? In all of the phenomenon, perhaps, Mr. Grave, that you've analyzed, have we ever seen multiple craft in a single formation?
I have one particular case, and that was during the gimbal incident. The recording on the AT FLIR system shows a single object that rotates. You hear the pilots refer to a fleet of objects that is not visible on the FLIR system. And that was something that I witnessed during the debrief as part of the radar data on the situational awareness page. I would like to add, however, Congressman, there's a small bit of anger, I would say. I would feel that those pilots are still facing that difficulty in reporting this topic, and they don't have the tools to be able to mitigate this issue. It just goes to show how serious this is and why this is such an important issue for our pilots and for our nation.
It was stated explicitly to me by these test pilots that if you have a UAP experience, the best thing you can do for your career is forget it and not tell anyone. Because any type of reporting, either above the surface or below the surface, does have a perceived consequence to these people, and that is a culture we must change if we want to get to the truth. Mr. Chairman, I would observe that perhaps as we move forward from this hearing, there are some obvious next steps. Every person watching this knows that we need to meet with Mr. Grush in a secure, compartmentalized facility so that we can get fulsome answers that do not put him in jeopardy and that give us the information we need. Second, I would suggest that the radar images that were collected of this formation of craft out of Eglin Air Force Base, and specifically the actual image taken by the actual flight crew that we can actually validate, be provided to the committee, subpoenaed if necessary, so that we're able to track how to get this type of reporting and analysis done in a more fulsome way. That would be my recommendation, humbly, as a guest here of the Fine Oversight Committee. I yield back.
Ms. Mace?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to our witnesses who are testifying today. I want to thank each of you for being here to discuss a topic of grave importance to our national security. Earlier this year, a Chinese spy balloon was shot down off the coast of my home state of South Carolina. Since the Roswell incident in 1947, many Americans have wondered about the dangers of unknown objects crisscrossing our skies. Whether these are UAPs or weather phenomena, advanced technology from American allied or enemy forces, or something more out of this world. So my first question, I have several questions, and if we can just be quick on these first two, I'm going to ask each of you the same question, and then I'll get to each of you individually. The first one, when you reported your experiences with a UAP, did any of you face any repercussions with your superiors, yes or no?
No.
No. I've actually never seen anything personally, believe it or not. So.
All right. And then do you believe there's an active disinformation campaign within our government to deny existence of UAPs? Yes or no?
I don't have an answer to that.
As previously stated publicly, yes.
I think previously with like Project Blue Book, yes, but currently I don't speak for the United States government.
Okay, thank you. I have a few questions for Mr. Graves. What percentage of UAP sightings in your belief go unreported by our pilots?
This is an approximation based off of my personal experience speaking with a number of pilots, but I would estimate we're somewhere near 5% reporting perhaps.
So like 95% basically don't report seeing UAPs.
That's just my personal estimate.
In the incident off Virginia Beach, do you believe the Navy took the danger to your aircraft seriously after it was reported?
Absolutely.
A few questions for Mr. Favor. As an expert naval aviator, have you ever seen an object that looked and moved like the Tic Tac UAP?
No.
Did the Tic Tac UAP move in such a way that defied the laws of physics?
The way we understand them, yes.
Many dismiss UAP reports as classified weapons testing by our own government, but in your experience as a pilot, does our government typically test advanced weapon systems right next to multi-million-dollar jets without informing our pilots?
No, we have test ranges for that.
It took over 15 years for your encounter with the Tic Tac to be declassified. Do you feel there was a good reason to prevent lawmakers from having access to this footage?
No, I just think it was ignored when it happened and it just sat somewhere in a file, never got reported.
In a drawer. It happens a lot up here. Shocker. Mr. Grush, a couple of questions for you too, sir, this morning. What percentage of UAPs do you feel are adequately investigated by the U.S. government of the 5% that are reported?
I can only speak for my personal leadership over at NGA. I tried to look at every report that came through that I could triage. So.
Do you believe that officials at the highest levels of our national security apparatus have unlawfully withheld information from Congress and subverted our oversight authority?
There are certain elected leaders that had more information that I'm not sure what they've shared with certain Gang of Eight members or et cetera, but certainly I would not be surprised.
Okay. You've stated that the government is in possession of potentially non-human spacecraft. Based on your experience and extensive conversations with experts, do you believe our government has made contact with intelligent extraterrestrials?
Something I can't discuss in public setting.
Okay, and I can't ask when you think this occurred. If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries. Yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
And was this documentary evidence, this video, photos, eyewitness? Like, how would that be determined?
The specific documentation I would have to talk to you in a skiff about.
Gotcha. Okay, so, and you may or may not be able to answer my last question, and maybe we get into a skiff at the next.
Yeah, you there, guys? Yeah, I just yeah, y'all go into UFOs disclosed. You know, like I said, these governments are having meetings on this, Congress. I'm talking to whistleblowers, military people. These people are telling you what they seen. You know, so y'all better start paying attention. This is a threat to America. Is so serious to these people. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, Trump made a space military force before he left out. So these people are taking these things really, really, really serious. You know. Let me see if I can find something else, Matt. Matter of fact, I want people to see this, to hear this thing that happened in Las Vegas. Let's see if they can show that. It's the 911 call. I want people to hear this 911 call. All right, let's share it real quickly. Share it. You there, Yasin? Can't really hear you, but. Show a piece of this for you. I ain't even showing, but yeah, I want y'all to see this 911 call. Oh, here it go. Let's see if they really show what they said on the 911 call. They're trying to cover up already.
It was the streak seen across the sky, now seen around the world. This, as our 8 News Now investigators confirm Metro actually set up cameras at this home where a family called 911 claiming to see aliens in their backyard. And tonight, a fierce debate is underway about the legitimacy of an alleged UFO crash. Good evening, I'm Janice Valdez.
And I'm Brian Loftus. Our 8 News Now investigators reporting about terrified members of a local family who told police they had aliens in their backyard. Chief Investigator George Knapp here to piece it all together.
You know, as with all things UFO, the public debate is ferocious and ongoing. Was it all a hoax? Were we duped? Was it all an evil plot, a cover-up, all of the above? We took another look at the hubbub to separate wheat from chaff. The fireball captured on a police body cam on the night of April 30th was real. The American Meteor Society says witnesses reported seeing it all across the West, from northeastern Utah to Southern California. Another Las Vegas resident sent us a video of the same object recorded on her home camera.
Investigation by Nexstar station KLAS.
As the story of the Las Vegas incident spread across newscasts and social media, one of NASA's planetary defense officers weighed in to say it was likely a small meteor that fell to Earth hundreds of miles away from Las Vegas. Police videos obtained by 8 News Now indicate Metro officers were among the witnesses.
One of my partners said they saw something fall out of the sky too, so that's why I'm kind of curious.
The appearance of the meteor seemingly triggered the events that followed. A frightened family called 911 and told police they had 10-foot-tall alien beings in their backyard. Officers responded to the home minutes later, interviewed the witnesses, canvassed the area, and cautiously inspected the backyard to look for intruders. One thing noticed by the officers was a circle in the soil. In conversations with us and in a podcast interview, Angel, the main witness, suggested the circle might have been created when an unknown object landed in the yard. Social media sleuths have since pointed out that the circular image has been viewable via Google Earth for more than a year. The family told us by phone they had seen suspicious vehicles with men in black types checking out their home. Turns out there is substance to that. A retired police officer fessed up on News Nation that he spent days staking out the house to see what, if anything, unfolded. What about those reports that Metro installed a special surveillance camera atop the house, presumably to watch for intruders, human or otherwise, or overzealous media? Turns out that's true as well. Metro confirmed as much in a statement to 8 News Now's David Charnes. The system stayed on the roof for days. What about the Ring camera video with the weird noise? The main witness, Angel, intimated to us the video was recorded by one of his neighbors, and the audio was from the April 30th UFO crash. It wasn't. The security camera video was recorded in mid-April, according to the man who first posted the clip. He doesn't want his name used, but says the recording was from a fireball that passed over his home in the southwestern part of the valley 2 weeks prior to the alleged alien encounter. The family declined to be interviewed by us, but members have spoken elsewhere and stick to their claims of seeing aliens in the backyard. Dozens of people on social media have analyzed and dissected the images with various claims of aliens spotted in the shadows. Police do not believe this was a hoax call, which could be a crime if done intentionally. In the fervid swamp known as UFO world, our coverage of the story was itself seen as a dastardly plot to distract attention away from a prominent whistleblower named David Grush, who stepped forward around the same time. Grush unveiled his explosive on-camera account on News Nation, which is owned by the parent company of KLAS. In spite of the local news story, Grush's story was reported by news media all over the world. Curses foiled again.
All right. So, I mean,
Wow, did y'all hear that? They're saying that they could have been used that news footage to cover up the whistleblower who y'all just showed. I just showed in the government meeting with the other two guys, the military guys, said that they seen these UFOs. Do y'all see how this media do? Do y'all see how they control the social media, they control everything? That's why I have a website, a page called Exposing the Matrix, because they showing you what these people can do, man. They can control us. They control the way we think. They can tell us what's real, what's fake. Because fake is not real. They have the ability to do this to us, man. They can distract you while something real is going on. This man was telling about his experiences with the UFOs and was a military government worker, but yet they had us distracted by something else. This is how deceiving these people are, and that's why they having these meetings, because these congressmen, these people know how the government works. They know about the threatening, they know about the hiding and the deceiving it. They're telling people you're not going to speak up against it. Even the man that's a whistleblower is still keeping it confidential because he's scared that he would be murdered for what he's saying. So y'all stop thinking this stuff is a game. Stop believing in the religious aspects and understand how can you believe in this, but you don't believe in this. Okay? You believe a woman had birth without a man, but then you don't believe in the alien extraterrestrial being. You believe a man can walk on water, but you've never seen a man walk on water. But you don't believe it's an extraterrestrial being to have a spaceship that came from outer space. You believe in an angel with wings on his back. They don't have a suit on that just flies around like a bird. Y'all stop playing with yourself. Stop letting these people tell you. Stop losing your reality of things, because nothing ain't flying nowhere without spaceships, without because most things are made of material, even if it's outer space or in space. I mean, on Earth. See what I'm saying? None of this stuff is see-through beings. None of these things are like that. They are beings from another planet, just like we have beings in the ocean, we have beings in space. We have different aspects of things everywhere, man. Stop being fooled. And with that, peace out.